Hello my hungry friends, today we're making Polish pączki, donuts. We're going to start by making our yeast starter for our pączki. I am using fresh yeast today, and I encourage you to do so as well if you can find it. You can find it at most organic food stores like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, and some larger grocery stores carry those too. They give really good flavor to our finished product, but dry active yeast will also work. So if you're using fresh yeast, you want to break it up into your bowl, and our yeast will sit here with sugar and warm milk and activate. And if you're using dry yeast, just use about 4.5 tablespoons of yeast. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of sugar. This regular white sugar will work. And as soon as sugar heats our fresh yeast, yeast starts dissolving. So I'm just going to break it up with my whisk a little bit to let it dissolve. And I'm going to add 1 cup of warm milk to help it along. And they are already melting. I can feel it. So just whisk it enough for the sugar to melt and for the yeast to dissolve, whether you're using fresh or dried yeast. And then once the sugar is dissolved and the yeast also is dissolved, I'm going to add 1.5 cup of bread flour and no salt. Don't add salt to this mixture, it'll kill the yeast. But this is pretty watery, as you can see. This is pretty watery and bubbly, and there's some lumps in there, but don't worry about that. This is ready, and you can smell the yeast already melting with the sugar, and we want that to come through in our pączki. So our starter will now have to rest for at least 30 minutes, sometimes longer if your kitchen is cool, but cover it with a clean cloth or a kitchen towel and set it in a warm spot in the kitchen. If your kitchen is pretty cold, you can turn the oven on to warm for a few minutes, then put the starter in, shut the door, turn off the oven just to kind of create a warm space for it, and just let it sit and get ready for making our pączki. This mixture has been sitting for about 30 minutes. I have a pretty warm kitchen, so we didn't have to wait any longer. And this is what it looks like. It's nice and bubbly and ready to do the job. So to continue with our pączki, I'm gonna start with beating some eggs. I have 6 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. And I'm gonna use the largest bowl that I have, and this is what it looks like. My stand-up mixer can't hold that much, so I have to do my dough by hand today. So I have the eggs, and I'm adding 1/2 cup of sugar, and I will blend this now. If you're using a stand-up mixer, go with the whisk attachment. And I'm gonna beat this for about 2-3 minutes until it's nice and white. Okay, these are done. I'm now gonna add our yeast starter, and the whole thing is gonna go in. That's why we need a larger bowl. Let's see how bubbly it is. So yeast dough likes to be worked, And the yeast likes to work in it. So the more chances we give it to rise, the better. So it has risen once with the sugar and milk, and it's going to rise again once we put all of these ingredients together. And I'm just going to kind of give it a stir for now. If you're using a stand-up mixer, you want to switch your whisk to a regular paddle. So I'm going to do that now. I've switched my hand mixer to these handy dandy swirly mixers. I don't have to do it by hand all the way. So I have the yeast and flour and sugar mixture. Then I added and then the egg yolks with the sugar. And I'm going to start adding my flour. 6 cups of bread flour, 3/4 cup of warm milk, zest and juice of 1 lemon, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, 3.5 ounces of melted butter, and pinch of salt. And last but not least, I'm going to add, I have high volume alcohol, in Polish spiritus, and this will help us with the dough when frying. Grandma said, and it's widely understood in Poland, that adding this to your pączki dough will make them not soak up the grease when being fried. So you can use the highest volume alcohol you have, or you can find in your store. In America, I think the highest you can go is Everclear. But if you don't have that, you can add rum or whiskey or vodka, whatever you have. So I have 3.5 tablespoons of that. So that goes in. And I'm going to work with this mixer just a little bit longer, and then I'm going to switch to mixing by hand. I just added the rest of my flour, and now I'm going to hand knead it, or hand mix it for a while, at least until it all combines. If you have a stand-up mixer that can handle this amount of flour, go ahead and just use your hook and work the dough until it's all combined. So pączki is a fried pastry, just like the donut. Our Polish donuts, don't have a hole in them, and they're available in all bakeries all year round. But we go crazy about them on Fat Thursday. In Poland, we celebrate Fat Thursday, not Tuesday, and it's a different day every year depending on when the holiday of Easter falls, and it's the last Thursday before Lent, and it's called Fat Thursday because we eat donuts all day.
How about the competition?
In my family, my mom and I started this several years ago, and we continue doing this to every Fat Thursday we spend together, and now it has shifted into my family, and we do it too. Every Fat Thursday we buy probably a dozen donuts or so, and then we have to eat, and they're covered with sugary glaze, and the competition is that you have to eat the donut without licking your lips, which is extremely hard. I can't say I win, but we do it, and we do it with my husband and daughter also every year, and we'll be doing it this year too. So my dough is coming together. There's still a little bit of dryness on the bottom, so just keep working it. You want the dough to be smooth. You don't want lumps in it. my dough's coming together, but I really want to be doing this on a flat surface. It'll give me a little bit more space to work and spread it out. So I'm going to switch to my pastry board. So I'm switching to my handy dandy pastry board. I can move around better and knead this dough till it's smooth. This will make a good amount of pączki for eating and for sharing. And we all know we don't make food just for ourselves. We love to share. My husband asks me that all the time. Why did you make so much? I'm like, I don't know, I can't help it. Someone might come over and eat. And I'm not adding in more flour to the dough. I don't want it dry. I want it kind of glistening on the outside. So once it picks up all of these little pieces of dough, I just want to work it in. So it picked up all of the little pieces off my board, but I can see there's still some lumps in the dough. It's not smooth, so I'm going to keep working it until it's completely smooth, which this dough prefers. So you can't really go wrong with kneading your dough for a long time. It'll just make the finished product nice and airy on the inside once cooked. So take your time. You can go about 10 minutes if you can and make it all smooth. That's a workout. I have to go to the gym today. Look at it. I'm gonna come closer and look. Nice and smooth and airy. We can hear the little air pockets popping. And this looks good to me now. I will cover it, put it in my bowl. I'm going to cover it and again set it in a warm spot in the kitchen. And we can start with 30 minutes and see how it looks, but we want it to fill up this bowl. It has to at least double in size. So I'm going to cover it with my clean towel again. And we will come back when this is rested. Pączki dough has been resting for an hour and a half, and it has doubled in size. And this is what it looks like. It's nice and airy. I'm gonna punch it a little bit now. And I'm gonna do, we're gonna try half. Rolling out half at a time. To form our donuts to fry. We don't want to start our oil yet because we need another probably 15, 20 to 30 minutes for the individual donuts to rest and rise. This is a long process. This is not a fix it and forget it kind of dish. Make sure you have plenty of time to work on the dough throughout the day. Good weekend project. Oh, look how nice and airy it is. So I'm going to use a lid from a jar to cut out circles. You can use, if you have a pierogi cutter or something like that, you can certainly use that. We're not going to roll this out thin. Probably about an inch, about 3 centimeters thick. And I'm not adding any more flour to this lemon seed because I don't want it. I just don't want any more flour on it. I don't want it drying. Okay, Okay, so this is maybe a little bit more than an inch, maybe an inch and a half or two. And it's very elastic dough. I think this will do. I'm going to bring my tray and cut out circles. Last batch of our pączkas. When I first went and lived in America, I went as an exchange student in high school for my junior year, and I landed in the Midwest in Wisconsin, central Wisconsin, Stevens Point. Very large Polish population there, but probably like second and third and fourth generation. And people knew Polish donuts, but they call them pączkas. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Americans know them as pączkas, but they're pączki. So I will see how many we have out of this batch. 10. So there's 23, and then this little bit of dough. So 25, 26 donuts out of that. That's a pretty good amount. Not enough for church picnic, but definitely enough for a 3-person family. Okay, now last resting time. We'll give these probably at least 15 minutes. We want them to rise up a little bit, so give them room when you put them on the tray. We'll start at 15 minutes. You can start heating your oil now. I'm using a cast iron dish today. I like how it holds the heat, and you want enough oil in the pan to let your pączki float and not touch the bottom. So depending on how big your pan is, just make sure there's 3 inches of oil on the bottom. And I like using, traditionally we should use lard, but if you don't want to use lard, you can do either some lard and vegetable oil or just vegetable oil. I'm going to use grapeseed oil, and I'm adding a little bit of lard to it, probably about 9-10 ounces. So I'm going to start my oil now and set it on medium-low, about 2 or 3 out of, probably 3 out of 10. And we'll fry these soon. So my oil seems hot. I'm gonna start frying them now. And you can either choose to fry or you can bake your donuts. I also have my oven going to at 350, so once that's hot, I'm gonna put a batch in the oven. And they need to bake for about 12 to 13 minutes. So you want the oil hot, but you don't want it so hot that once you put the donut in, it burns immediately. We want it to sit in oil and cook all the way through. So when I put it in, it may not start bubbling right away. And just be really gentle. Oh, this did start boiling a little bit. So I'm going to turn it down just by 1. Because we want to give it time to cook on the inside. We don't want a super doughy inside while the outside is burnt. I can fit 4 in my pan. And just keep an eye on them. You want them to be in here for about 2 to 3 minutes. And when you take it out, they should look nice golden brown like this. And continue doing that to all of your donuts until they're all cooked, and then we'll go ahead and put some jelly into them and we'll glaze them. So I have a cup of powdered sugar in here, and I squeezed half a lemon into it, and then I added 1 teaspoon of water, and I started mixing. And you can do that until you get a good consistency. You don't want it to runny because you want the glaze to stay on your donuts. So that's ready. And if you want to take a look at our donuts, the other half seems nice and brown. We'll flip them now and see how they're floating. They're not resting on the bottom. That's how much oil you want in there. I also have my spritz ready. I don't know if it's called spritz. What is this called?
It's a pipette bag.
There you go, what he said. And I filled it with homemade jam or jelly or marmalade. It's more like a marmalade. Mine is currant and plum. And just, you can use store-bought or homemade, just make sure it's smooth and there's no lumps in it. So it goes through your piping end, I guess. So we have that ready. I'm gonna give these just a couple more minutes. We don't want to rush it, but these have cooled enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and put jelly in one of them. So because they were frying and floating in oil, that's what creates this this white ring, which kind of makes it look like a donut. And we're just gonna kind of have to eyeball how much will go in there, but you just put a hole in it and just give it a squeeze. I can hear air going in, so I'm gonna fold it a little bit more. There we go. And just kind of eyeball it. And I'm going to do that to all of them. And they're cool enough that I can handle them, but still warm. We can eat a warm donut if we want to. That's good. And I'm going to make a little bit more room. I'm going to transfer these here. Give them time, don't rush it. As long as they're frying, just keep them in. If they stop bubbling, to kick up your heat a little bit, but it's better to hold them in the heat, in the oil for just a little bit longer, so we're sure that they've cooked through. I think that's it for these. I'm going to turn this off and take these out and let them drain from the fat. And as you can see, as soon as I take them out of the oil, they're dry. And if there's science behind what Grandma was saying about the high volume alcohol, this is working because they're nice and dry and they didn't soak up too much oil. And then last but not least, we'll give them a little glaze. And you can do as much or as little as you want. You can also put orange peel on top to decorate them, or just keep them like this. And shall we try? We shall. My beta taster. Oh yeah. Check it out. They're nice and cooked on the inside. They're crispy on the outside. I didn't get to jelly yet. Oh, just a little bit in mine. Did you get any jelly? Oh, yeah, you could definitely fit more jelly in here. But I like the crispiness on the inside and They're definitely cooked they're crispy on the outside and cooked on the inside, which this is what we want. Go ahead and make these. Happy Fat Thursday. Eat away. Don't lick your lips. Lick your lips. Do whatever. Enjoy. Smacznego.